Okay, folks, Hotep. With us today, it's an honor and a privilege to have Dr. Nteri Nelson and her husband, Heru Nelson. And what they have is a school of metaphysics located in Boston. And today, they're here to give us a little enlightenment. So without further ado.
Well, thank you, Henry, for inviting us on your program here. Yes, as Henry has introduced me, I'm Dr. Nteri Nelson, and I am co-founder, along with my husband, of the Academy of Kemetic Education, Right Relationship, Right Knowledge, and Wellness. And I'm a holistic psychotherapist and teacher within the Academy. So you want to just say who you are?
Excuse me. We have also been married for 20 years. Happily married couple for 20 years. And we do relationship
work
work
for
also.
25.
Yes. Well, 20. Yeah, we're going for 25 or 30. But we do relationship work also. And we enjoy our work because we consider it being our sole purpose for being here. And that means that we want to help everyone that comes into our space.
So let's talk about right relate. So our motto was right relationship, right knowledge, and out of that is right health as well. Right relationship, as you started to say, is that we work with families, couples, individuals, youth, and we do marriage counseling, family counseling. Help families stay together, which we feel is very, very important. The work of resolving conflict, commitment, caring, forgiveness is a big one. How to forgive when there's been a woundedness that has occurred. Communication is key in relationships. So we do a lot of work with individuals, with families, and in the community. We work with agencies also.
What inspired you to develop school?
Well, first of all, I have to start with my love of teaching, and so let's shift to the right knowledge part, and that is one of the major courses in the Academy is that I teach a certification programs in an African-centered model for psychological, spiritual, and character development, which is underpinned by our history. And our program attracts folks of all ages. Yours truly, you've been a student, or as we say, an initiate in the Academy, because this study is at all levels, but it's also advanced study as well. So we have had folks who have been to spacious and well-funded universities, but they have come to our little African schoolhouse to learn.
I was about to say that.
what they haven't learned in these other settings, and that's the African contribution to civilization, to humanity, and we really steep ourselves in the tremendous African scholarship, the Black scholarship that has come forth. Books written by George James and John Henry Clark, the late Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Rosalind and Leonard Jeffries, Professor Small, Sheikh Anta Diop, a whole host of folks. And the texts we use also in the certification program are the books that I have co-authored. One is Ka-Aba, Building the Lighted Temple, and the other is Secrets of Race and Consciousness. And we also have a new book called The Golden Sun Egg Uncracked, and that really helps us understand our African cosmology and the story of creation, not from a Big Bang, with Big Bang kind of terminology, but the way our ancestors from the Nile Valley understood it, and the forces and how they understood the unfolding of universe, and using the names that they called it.
Now, question. When you mention consciousness, since the Western world now seems to be in a state of devolution,
Yes.
how do you go about raising people's consciousness? Because for the most part, their eyes are wide shut.
Yes, yes, and I'm so glad that you pointed right here, Henry, to the first. Some people call it the third eye, but it's really the first eye because it's the internal eye, the eye that sees and the eye that knows. It's the eye that developed before these two physical eyes that saw exteriorly. This is the one that sees interiorly and more fully. But it is about raising the consciousness. Did you want to?
Sure, I wanted that.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. What we do different in our classes is that we sit in a circle and we contribute to the knowledge. Each one knows something. Not everyone knows all, but between all of us, we know all. So whatever you know, you contribute, and whatever I know, I contribute. And by that way, we seem to educate each other. And when we walk out of the room, we all know something new. So we consider that being, excuse me, a new way of teaching, a new way of educating and waking up the eye. Because we're not competing against each other. We're talking about unity and bringing a unity of consciousness where no one is greater than the whole. So we find ourselves working in a deficit in this country because we've been competing against each other.
Now, since a good number of your students are educators, have they been able to raise the consciousness of their students, et cetera?
Absolutely, absolutely, and they too, you know, they express a frustration in haven't not learned these things in those traditional settings through high school, through college, through master's level. We've had masters, and you know, and beyond people who have come to our academy, and then going back and trying to educate their students is frustrating because it's met with well, the insistency that everything be seen through a more Eurocentric lens, and that leaves us out. And that's what's wrong with the educational system today is that you know, our story has essentially been left out. So that's why these alternative schools or settings is the place that we've had to come to learn. But our teachers, our educators, they have been able to, in turn, infuse a sense of self-esteem in their respective workplaces and with their students, or sometimes it's they're in healthcare, wherever walk of life, they're able to infuse a sense of self-esteem and confidence because they're more in tune with our story, our contribution. You know, just think how devastating it is for our youth to not have images, not be taught.
They don't see themselves.
They don't see themselves. So you know, they feel invisible. They don't feel the investment in the educational system. So from preschool on up to university level, there's a void of the African contribution, and it's not just in Boston or Massachusetts or United States. This is worldwide. This is worldwide. This is a global issue. This is a global problem.
Yeah, we've had a problem even bringing to light the inventors. There's been black inventors that have heart transplants. I mean, transfusion, blood transfusion, Charles Drew, refrigeration, automation, all types. The street lights. I mean, there's been all types of inventors that have been black that aren't even entered into the history books of.
As long as you're playing baseball, basketball, football,
Right. That's
Right.
it.
you're good.
That's
You're
it.
good.
That's it.
Well, there's a
exactly.
reason for that, because they call it here in this country, they call it racism. But we believe and we know It's that they have stolen our legacy. And therefore, if they give us our legacy, we would be competing against them. And as we really dominate the sports, we would dominate the other world also. But we have to fight for this because we need more doctors, we need more lawyers, we need people that look like us to take care of us. So our school is dedicated to working to lift up our folks so that they become more than just athletes, you know, baseball players,
Song and
football
dance man.
players. Yeah,
Okay.
entertainment.
Okay, next question. When you look back into ancient Egypt, what do you find was their inspiration to build what they did on a spiritual basis?
Well, they're just being in tune with the laws of Ma'at. I mean, that we got to start with there, the Ma'atian principles. And we find the laws of Ma'at in one of the oldest books that have come to us now, and that is the Pertemru, which would erroneously be called the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
Okay.
So we find the 42 laws of Ma'at. Christianity would take 10 of these, just 10 of 42, and call these the 10 Commandments. And so if you ask people, do they know, you know, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, do they know that's the name of what's the name of that? They'll tell you the 10. They've heard of that, but they can't hit the rewind back further to identify where those come from, and what of the other 32 that you're still not familiarizing yourself with. And could it be that your life would be transformed if you had the rest of the story?
They'd be a little bit too disciplined.
Well, there would be, you know, when we take a piece or a part, we can only manifest that piece or part. Our African, so this whole book is about our African psychology. Our African ancestors were masters in the science of the soul and the journey of the soul, the psychological, spiritual unfolding of consciousness. And we had a system of salvation, of character development, of right living and right understanding long before modern religion and Western psychology. So if we could reconnect with this ancient wisdom and utilize the application in modern daily living, we would improve our lives. We would experience more the enlightenment that we seek in these dark times.
One thing that we are working on is bringing about a unitive consciousness. And how we work about that is we have a physical, we have an emotional, we have a mental, and we have a spiritual self. All of us have this. Now, you have to be able to understand the difference in what I'm saying. When you're saying physical, you're talking about, you know, yourself, your body, and then there's emotional, which is your history and what makes you cry and what makes you laugh. And you also have what we call the mental. Now, the mental deals with taking in information in order to be able to change. When we're working on these different aspects of ourselves, we are working to promote ourselves to be a spiritual person. That means that we want to be able not only to help ourselves, but help others. We need more people that have promoted themselves to the spiritual part and not just the religious part. There's a big difference. And we have to be able to see that difference in ourselves, that spirituality and religion are two different things. So the spiritual aspect is promoting the good and the great of all. So we're not only promoting our goodness and grace by doing this, we uplift the whole world. And this is what African consciousness was all about. See, when you said what was different, they had a unitive consciousness. They didn't leave out of this world without leaving something behind to show that they were here. Not a car, not a house, not the American dream, right? Not money, but cities, great pyramids built by our ancestors that are still standing today.
And on that note, one of the classes in the academy that is being taught is called Nteri Nelson. So we're teaching the ancient African language, which the Greeks would later call hieroglyphics. The Greeks renamed much of our story. Much of our story has been renamed or called something else. Our African ancestors didn't call their language hieroglyphics, they called it Nteri Nelson. So we in the academy, I'm teaching a course now in Nteri Nelson. And so when we go to the temples and in Kemet, Kemet is also the name for the land that are called by our ancestors, which would later be called Egypt by the Greeks. Our ancestors didn't call it Egypt, they called it Kemet. So the ability to go and read the writing on the wall, we are learning firsthand what was said on the walls. Our ancestors left us all the math, the science, the medicine, the music, all the prescriptions that were needed for us to live a good life.
Now, if they can read it, they must be able to speak it.
Yes, yes.
Now, how did they incorporate into their language?
Well,
How would they apply it today?
one needs to know the history of what happened to Nteri Nelson. There's a long history here, but with the invasion of Kemet and the slaying of our ancestors and the migrating out of Kemet of our ancestors, the Nteri and the closing of the mystery schools where the language was taught. Okay, there was a silencing of the language, and which remained silent until the discovery of the Rosetta Stone in 1799, and it was through that discovery that and the work of those who began to translate began the arduous work of translating that the language was able to be reconstructed. Or so there's been a loss of this language. I mean, when we came here in this journey to the Americas, we lost our language from. So there's been loss of language on many different labels, but now we are reacquiring that language, and many are in vigorous study of that language now.
Yeah, what happened in our transition to here is that they put the fear of death in us. In other words, we believe now that we only live for 60, 70 years, and then we're gone. So when we talk to the average American, they're not really interested in doing something of greatness because they say, well, we're not going to be here. We're leaving. But we have a different attitude. We know that we have to do something while we're here so that folks will know that we're here and will also be held accountable for the knowledge that we have obtained. So we have to leave this legacy. We have no choice. We have to leave a legacy of greatness so that those who come behind us will be able to benefit. We just don't want to leave a house or a car or a boat.
Here's my insurance policy.
Right, right.
We want to leave something of greatness. And because of the knowledge being lost in that transition, you know, our names, our culture, we are now rejuvenating this. See, this is bringing life back to us. We went to the bottom. Now it's time for us to rise again.
Now, you also run trips to Kemet.
Yes, yes, which is so important. And you know, we've been to other parts of Africa as well, to Ghana, and I know you've been to Senegal, right? You know, going on these holiest of pilgrimages is so important for in the spirit of Sankofa for us to return, and it's just such a beautiful experience to go to Kemet and see the pyramids, which are the Miakut, to see the pyramids, to see